Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. I'm Juan Ayala, and welcome to Actors with Issues. Each week, we bring you interviews with actors from across TV, film, and Broadway, taking many deep dives into their careers and getting into the successes, the struggles, and of course, the issues that they face as actors. That's enough about us. Let's dive into the episode. Today's guest is an actor you know and love as the ultimate best friend on the Apple TV Plus series Acapulco. Please welcome to the stage Fernando Carsa. Fernando, welcome back to the show.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me again. I love your podcast, your show. So I feel very grateful to be here with you.
So as we were just saying, you're the first person we're having back for a second solo interview. So yeah, we'll get you a little badge or something that says like
Oh my, can I please get one? I would love to do that.
So we always start with a game, if you remember, but we've switched it up a little bit, so we now give options. So to start with the game, we just pick a number between 1 and 3. So 1, 2, or 3.
Three is my lucky number. So 3.
Alrighty, so game number 3 is called What Comes to Mind. So I'm going to say a person, a place, or something from your career, and you just say the first thing that comes to mind. So we'll start with acting.
Love of my life.
Dancing.
Second love of my life.
Puerto Vallarta.
Second home.
Acapulco.
Biggest blessing of my life.
Pink.
Becoming my favorite color.
It's hard not to when you're surrounded by
I
it for
know,
so long.
honestly, it's like they're, doing some sort of psychological thing on me with all that thing around.
Enrique Arizon.
Best friend.
Jessica Collins.
Oh, fairy godmother on set.
Oh, I love that. That totally fits,
Oh my God, you have no idea. Her, Regina Orozco, and Vanessa Bauche, they're like what Sleeping Beauty has with the 3 fairies. That's them for me on set.
Rafael Cebrián.
Oh my God, my favorite enemy. I mean, in the show, people don't know.
Right.
Don't say drama.
Right, we're not gonna have like a headline. Fernando Carsa.
I know,
enemies.
no. I love you with my whole heart. No.
At midnight.
Oh, Diego Boneta.
Next is Diego Boneta.
Speechless.
Mónica Bárbaro.
Oh, most beautiful soul in the world.
And comedy.
Thank God. After 3 years of what we've been through, that's what we need right now. So thank God.
So unlike a lot of actors, you grew up with both of your parents were performers. So I know that we have talked before, so I know that they're like very sort of like encouraging and whatnot, but was performing always on your radar, or was there a point in life that you were like, let me think of something else?
No, never. I mean, at some point, I lied to my extended family saying that I wanted to be an architect, so they would stop bothering me about acting not being a real career. But the reason why I would say that, what was that? I know, right? I know. I know. I'm like, and I just whip my hair. But no, I used to say at some point when I was like 10, I was like, oh yeah, I'll be an architect. But in the back of my head, I'm like, if I do go for architecture, it's so I can build sets for theater. So
right, still
it was still tied to performance. But no, I mean, since I can remember, I wanted to be an entertainer and a performer. First, I wanted to be a pop star, as most people want to, and then that evolved into wanting to do all 3 disciplines: singing, dancing, and acting. But yeah, I know for a fact this is what I was born to do.
And looking ahead in terms of like of career aspirations, whatnot, since you did grow up as a dancer and doing theater and whatnot, do you want to do more theater in your career, or do you want to sort of mix both and do like a movie musical or a musical show like what is it, Schmigadoon? Is a show like that?
I would love Apple. We're already part of the family, so if you want to invite me over to Schmigadoon, please do. I mean, I want to do it all. I mean, my dream role is to be Damien in the upcoming Mean Girls musical movie that Tina Fey is currently writing. I would love to play Damien in that project. That's my dream role. But I mean, I definitely want to go back into theater at some point, or live performance. I just did an interview not that long ago where I talked about hopefully doing an independent project next year where I release music of my own. That's something that I'm starting to plan and hopefully can happen.
Yeah.
I mean, live performance was my first love, but I do have to say I have a lot of respect for it. And because of the pandemic and how busy my schedule has been, I have not been able to train my singing or my dancing properly. So
Mm.
I wouldn't jump into it right now because I love it and I respect it so much that I want to make sure that I'm prepared to do it. So I don't want to have
Yeah.
to it. I want to be committed to the work, and that
Yeah.
takes stamina and training. So I have to
Yeah.
get back into that before I can go into it again.
I love hearing that because I feel like a lot of times actors will, after doing something like, like diving back into a passion of theirs, sometimes they'll say like, oh, I wish I took more time. I wish I had developed it more. So it's great that you already have that mindset. It's like, let's not half-ass it. Let's really commit
Oh,
and train and get back into it because it's a muscle,
it is.
singing and all of that when it comes to like range and your
Mhm.
dance technique and all of that as a performer, I know. But yeah.
No, yeah, it's totally like, and I have a lot of respect and love for what I do. So if I'm gonna bring something to an audience member, I want to make sure that they get what they deserve for their money. So I
Yeah.
will get back into the grind to make sure it's perfect.
And with one of your upcoming projects at midnight, I don't know much about it just because there's not much about it available. But obviously, without getting into spoilers or revealing anything, what can you share about your character and about the project?
See, I don't even know how much I'm allowed to share because it's
It's
still
a
in
movie.
post-production. It's a movie, it's a romantic comedy. It stars Diego Boneta and Monica Barbaro, who to this second, I cannot believe that I get to say that I've worked with those two, especially Diego. I've looked up to him my whole life. I got to see how he got started in the industry. I was 4 years old, and I can still remember the first time that I saw him on TV. I've gone to see every single step of his career, and the fact that now I
Mm.
get to play his best friend on a movie, I when I booked this role, I almost crapped my pants. I was so excited and so overwhelmed, and to this day, every time that I see his contact on my contact list, I cry a little. So it's a romantic comedy for Paramount Plus that hopefully comes out early next year. But that's all the info that I can give you right now, which is so
Yeah,
upsetting because I want to scream more to the like. You don't know how many pictures I have on my phone that I'm like, look at me now,
right.
but I can't.
So circling back to Acapulco, I know we've talked a lot. I mean, I'm sure you're tired of talking about season two and what people can look
Mm,
forward to, but
I'm
in
not.
terms of
I'm
no.
so tired. I love talking about our show.
So at this point, we've had the first two episodes came out last week. We have one more coming out this week. By the time this interview comes out, we'll have I think three or four out already. But based on what we've seen already, what would you say is maybe, and of course without revealing anything like specific, but like what would you say is like what you're looking forward to the most for audiences to see about Memo? Does Memo surprise us at all this season?
Oh yeah. Oh, Memo will. I mean, imagine I play the character, and every time I read a script, and as I saw the whole season evolve as we were reading scripts, I couldn't believe that the writers were letting my character win so much this season.
Mhm.
Um, I people are gonna be surprised. The writers like to use some of my special skills this season, like they did in the first one, and they let me sing. They might let me do some other stuff this season too,
Mhm.
like you might have seen in the trailer. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited for people to see a lot of what happens with Memo, but I do have to say, I love my character, but my favorite storyline this season is Sarah's storyline.
Mhm.
Um, I don't want to say much because I don't know who's seen it or hasn't seen it, but it's such a special story that speaks close to my heart, even though I don't play that character. But the way that storyline goes throughout the whole season and the way that people heal throughout the season,
Mhm.
it's a story pretty close to my heart. So I'm excited for people to enjoy that storyline more than Memo stuff, if I'm being completely
Mhm.
honest.
And with the show, what are you hoping happens with Memo's storylines? Like, let's say, looking at season three
Oh
and
my God. I
beyond,
mean,
what are you hoping Memo goes through?
something happens at the end of this season of season two on the very last episode, literally within the last few minutes of the show. That's pretty huge for Memo.
Mhm.
um of course I'm not gonna say what it is.
Right.
um um I think because of what happens at the end of the episode, I think it would be interesting to play a little bit around with Memo making more mistakes that have more serious consequences in season three.
Mm,
I know that he's a very loving character and whatnot, but I think it would be interesting to see him fall a little bit, and have to learn from his mistakes too.
yeah.
Maybe lose the ground a little bit, and having to heal his relationships with the people around him again, and make mistakes and grow from that as well. I think that'll be pretty interesting. My biggest dream for Memo is that he hopefully owns Las Colinas one day. I don't know if it'll happen, but or he becomes the next Don Pablo. Like that would be so cool. But I don't know if the writers are even thinking of something like that.
Mm,
But I kind of want to see my character get a little beat up by life, if you know what I mean.
yeah. Because that would be very, very grounded and very realistic. Because we can have the best intentions, but that doesn't mean that life is always like, okay, you get to do this. It's like you could try your hardest and still fail. So it's nice to see that represented in TV because this show is not like a sort of again we've talked. It's very heartwarming. It's very positive. It's very loving, but it's not happy go lucky where like everything's perfect all the time. Because obviously we know Maximo didn't get the girl at the end of season one. Things go wrong, and it would be cool to see that happen with Memo to sort of him see how he would react. Like he's such a positive kid. It's like what makes Memo break?
I know,
What
I
has
know.
to happen?
And a lot of more of that happens this season for sure, but I think we can dig deeper into it. And honestly, I think it's always really interesting to see how Memo and Maximo interchange their positions in their relationship. Like I'm usually the supporter, then there might be things this season that make Maximo the supporter. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm.
if the dynamic were to change because of whatever happens to Memo in the third season, I think it will be really interesting to see how Maximo is there for Memo the way Memo is usually there for Maximo. I feel like it would be pretty cute to see that on their friendship storyline as well.
And a few weeks ago, we got to speak with one of your co-stars who, as far as I know, you haven't actually gotten to share the screen together. It was Rafael Alejandro. And I did ask him
I
who
love
he, I did ask like who he has not worked with on the show yet that he hopes to, and he said you.
I did
He said,
see.
I don't know how we would make that happen, but and I was thinking like if there's like, when certain shows, if there's like a flashback, they'll sort of weave both of them, like the person from the present day is in the scene still. I'm like, maybe something like that, if I don't know. Well, I'm not a writer, so I won't give my suggestions. But yeah, he said he's really much looking forward to or hopes he can work with you in some capacity. So I'm curious now to ask you the same question is who have you not worked with yet on the show that is part of the cast that you hope somehow maybe work more with or just work with at all?
I've always, first of all, about the Rafael thing, I have to say, just keep watching seasons two, because it's full of surprises. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay.
Especially how the past and the present might intertwine. You never know. So keep watching. But in the show, I'm still waiting for the day that Memo can visit the Gallardo household and I can film in the Gallardo household with Vanessa Bauche, who plays Nora, with Esteban and with Sarah,
Mm.
Carlos Corona and Regina Reynoso. Like I'm still waiting. Like I'm Maximo's best friend, but we have not seen still the dynamic of how Memo is at their household.
Yeah.
So of course I'm friends with all of them, and we hang out all the time when we're on set and whatnot, and we still keep in touch. But I've never. I mean, I have a scene with Esteban in episode 7 of season 1, which it's a pretty funny scene. So
Mm.
um I don't know. I would love to act in the Gallardo household. That's
Yeah.
my dream. I want to act with Vanessa Bauche so bad.
And with the name of our show being Actors with Issues, of course, we always like to educate and enlighten as much as we can for our young audience. So, what comes to mind as something that you've learned in your career that you wish you'd learned earlier on?
I think this is something. This is a reminder. Alexa, stop. Sorry. She just reminded me to take my vitamin D. Sorry. That's one advice. Take your vitamin D because we're all no, but all jokes aside, I think we talked about mental health a little bit last time that we worked together, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken. And I'm gonna be completely forward and honest. I had to get on antidepressants after filming season 1 of Acapulco
Mhm.
because this business is a roller coaster. And if I'm being completely honest, after we filmed the first season, I came from such a high. I couldn't believe I had my TV debut, that I finally got into the door and all that stuff. And then for 8 months after that, I kept auditioning and didn't get a single callback.
Oh
So that's the reality of it. You know,
man.
it's now I'm glad that I learned it and whatnot, but I knew my mental health was declining, and I knew it was getting bad, and I started having really dark thoughts, just because I don't know. I to be honest, I don't know all the science behind it, but I
Mm,
just know that I was getting into a really dark place, and it was super weird to have to be like, "Oh my God, I'm making my TV debut and the season is premiering." Well, on the inside, I'm going rotten, you know, because I
mm,
I wasn't booking. My brain couldn't understand how I just did a series regular. The show wasn't getting picked up for a second season. Like, it felt like it was, como decimos en español, mi debut y despedida, you know, my debut and my goodbye.
yeah.
Um, so I went into a really dark place, and eventually I went and I asked for help, and I had to get an antidepressants. So I share this because I'm not ashamed of it, you
Mm,
know. But for a while, when I was talking to my doctor, and he was like, "Why didn't you ask for help first?" And I was like, "Honestly, because I thought my job was gonna cure me, but that's
mm,
not the answer."
yeah.
So I think I would just encourage people to ask for help. You know, I think we need to recognize that um, it's okay to ask for help, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I would say. Like, don't be afraid to ask for help, and recognize that it's a hard industry. So you don't feel ashamed to go look for solutions and whatnot. Because it can be tough. And
Yeah.
surround yourself with people who care for you and love you. That's very important, to have a strong support system as well.
First, thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's a reality for a lot of people, and they don't necessarily talk about it all the time. Like,
Mhm.
um, you get like post show blues. I feel like it happens with every theater show I've ever done. Is that you love your cast, you're rehearsing for weeks and weeks, and then you do the run, and then it's over, and like that first weekend where you don't have a show, you're like, what am I gonna do with my life? I forgot how to be human. I forgot,
Yeah.
and yeah, I feel like it's just it's talked about in that sense, but not in the severity
Mhm.
of also like not being able to book after, um and all of that. I feel like just it's not talked about. So again, thank you for sharing that, because I just feel like a lot of actors need to hear that. I
Yeah,
feel like
it's
when I booked my first TV role, I was like, okay, let's keep the ball rolling. What's next? And then nothing until they called me back for the next season. So a
I
whole
know.
year passed, and I'm like, well,
And it's scary, you know, it's scary to trying to think about the future, you know.
mhm,
It's a whole thing. Like, once you start adding the whole, if I'm being honest, financial aspect on it, of it too, you know, that's another, it just, things start piling up in your head, and that's what I think it's important to raise consciousness and awareness about the fact that it's a tough industry. So don't be afraid to ask for help and to take care of yourself. um I'm honestly, there was a moment after I filmed the movie with Diego Boneta, when I was flying back home. I was not in antidepressants yet. And I couldn't fall asleep on the plane, because I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm gonna, be gone if I fall asleep. And then immediately I went to the doctor the day after, and I was like, something's wrong, and
yeah,
I couldn't, you know. In my brain, I couldn't comprehend how I was making my dream come true, and I was filming a movie with Diego Boneta, and then I would come home from set to my hotel room and just feel lonely. I couldn't sleep. It was horrible. It was
mhm,
horrible. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And if we take medication for any other health issue, why not to do it with our brains as well, you know?
exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
every other thing, it's like, I have a little headache, this hurts, it's immediately you have
Exactly.
a solution. But we don't. I feel like in very little, I don't think, and really in any other lines of work do they treat the job
I
like
know.
medicine. Only actors, not only actors, only creatives do that. We're
Exactly.
like, well, let me go book something, it'll solve my problem. Like lawyers are not, let me go back in the courtroom, I'll feel better. It's like, no, well,
Mhm.
you know it's for whatever reason, we just like, there's a great quote from now that I say there's a great quote, I can remember her name. uh Elizabeth Gilbert, I think. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
Mhm.
In her book Big Magic, there's a quote that is I'm gonna paraphrase it because I can't remember it verbatim. Um, there is no shame in having a job. What is shameful is holding your art hostage and forcing it to pay for your entire existence. You know, I feel like we do that a lot. We're
Mm-hmm.
like, if I don't book this, I'm a fraud. I'm not an actor anymore. But it's like, or you can just like take a little break. You can take the time you have and try and, just focus on yourself instead of like the next thing.
You know, Lady Gaga said it, and when she was doing her art pop tour, she's like, "You to be an artist, you don't need a paintbrush, and you don't need money, and you don't need a contract.
Hmm,
You know, we don't need any of those things to create art. And if we were able to go through a pandemic where literally nothing was open and we had to do stuff from home, I don't see why when we can do that in um, our off time, or downtime per se.
so one last thing to ask before we go into like our last little mini game. With so much like sort of like misinformation about the industry out there, I feel like we get a lot of bad advice from people who have nothing to do with the industry, but they
Mhm.
feel that they should tell you like, they it's like you tell someone that you're an actor and they immediately have like something to say, but it's like, well, you're not in this industry, you don't really know what you're talking about. But okay, sure, I does not politely. But what comes to mind is like something that you have learned is like completely false about Hollywood and about the industry.
Honestly, that you need to stop being yourself to belong to it.
Mm,
I mean, that's the thing that has hit me the most, like, especially, and this is something that I would love theater schools or acting schools would like stop. Can I curse on the show?
absolutely.
Stop fucking doing.
Yeah.
And that is stop telling students that they need to fit into this fucking mold that apparently everyone wants to be part of. It's not true. It's
Mm,
so not true, especially in the way that this industry is changing. It's like, stop telling your students to lose weight. Stop telling your students to get rid of their dialects. Stop telling your students to dye their hair. Like, it's shocking how much it still happens.
mm,
That educational environments keep pushing their students to change in order to work in this industry. We need to start teaching people that essence and who you are, it's really what makes you stand out. If anything, something that I've also learned in the last few years is that, if I'm being completely honest, you don't need to be a good actor to belong in this industry. There's a shit ton of people who get cast based on essence, not
yeah.
acting skills. It's just the truth, especially with TV and film. I think with theater, you can bullshit it. You have to be a good actor. But the
Right.
truth is, in TV and film, how many times have you heard, oh my God, he sucks, or they suck, or she sucks? Why are they in this? Because they have the essence.
Mm,
And how do you showcase your freaking essence? By being your freaking self. So
right.
it's like, let's stop telling people that we need to change in order to belong to it, because the reality is our industry is not filled with talented people only. There's people who make it for other reasons, and it is
Yeah.
what it is. And it sells, so it's going to keep happening. Um so if you really want to make it and you want to make a change, and you want to, if you want to provide to the effects that media can have on people, be yourself and bring that to the table. You never know when your essence might get you the job. You don't know when they might rewrite the character because of your essence and because they loved you so much. Like, we need to stop sharing this idea that this industry would only accept skinny, light skin, blue eyes, blonde people.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I know that's an issue. I'm not saying it isn't,
Hmm.
but things are changing. And the only way that we can actually keep changing it is by keep presenting ourselves the way that we are.
Yeah. It worries me how outdated some of the line of thinking is in these like acting schools and drama schools. These professors who like, sorry, but they teach for a living. They don't act for a living.
Mm-hmm.
The actors are working. They're not teaching. They might do a master class at their old college or something, or a workshop. But in terms of the people who are like employed full time, who are like shaping these actors for 4 years or longer, depending on how long these programs are, they just don't have that up to date information. They're still teaching things like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have to lose weight, you have to dye your hair, you're too ethnic, you're not ethnic enough, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, are they watching TV? Are they seeing how much this industry has changed in just the last 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Representation for Latinos has like doubled in the last 5 years. It's not anywhere near where it should be. I won't get into the numbers. I've done that. The Hispanic Heritage Month just ended, so that's all I was talking about for a whole month. But it's just it is very frustrating because like you'll hear young actors like talk about like, oh, my teacher said this, and I'm like,
Yeah.
quit, leave this school wherever you're going,
Mhm.
like leave immediately because they're not gonna they're not gonna help at all with like getting rid of your anxiety or your insecurities. They're only gonna make it worse because they're gonna harp on it for so long. It's very, very disheartening.
And honestly, in order to keep coping in this industry, you have to be your number one supporter and believer,
Mm,
because most of the people won't believe in you or will be too jealous to to say that they believe in you. You know, it's the
yeah,
truth. It's true. Like it's awful. It's so
yeah.
sad, you know, but there's also some of us who love to love and love to support, but there are people out there who are very negative. So, and this is something that I not only have learned since I started this in this industry, but my whole life is like you have to be there for yourself because no one else will be there for yourself the way you would be for yourself.
Yeah.
That was like a tongue twister, but I hope it makes sense, you know? Um, so love yourself, present
Yeah.
yourself with that pride and self-love and self-confidence. We all have something special to offer. And things will happen the way that they're supposed to happen in the timeline they're supposed to happen. So all you can do is show up, be prepared, and show them what you got. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
There's no magical formula to make it. So just be yourself.
I
The
feel like
right door
people
will
don't
open.
realize that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the right door will open whenever it has to open.
Well, Fernando, thank you so much for being so open and for sharing everything that you've shared with us today. All this advice. I know that actors everywhere are gonna, really find a lot of it helpful. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love doing your show. I love that the space that you're creating and the type of information and knowledge that you share is so important. So thank you for having me and thank you for continuing to share your show and the messages with so many actors and so many of us who like to listen. It's amazing. You should feel very proud of yourself and you're very cool.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You're so sweet. I remember, doing our show early on. It was like May 2020 when we started, and we got to like episode 10, and I'm like, wow, I didn't think I'd make it to 10, and here we are at over 150 at
I
this point.
know. That's
Yeah, it's crazy,
amazing.
but
And
yeah,
talking about things that are so important, and like you said, no one dares to talk about. Everyone thinks that our careers are glamour and
yeah,
traveling and what, and no, there's so much more behind it.
yeah. It's funny because all of us actors know all of that stuff, but
I know.
everyone else still thinks like, oh, they get to just, act and get paid millions of dollars. We're like, well, most of us are not getting paid millions of dollars. Most of us aren't making that in
Yeah,
10 years,
yeah.
if that. But yeah, so social media, where can our fans find you if they want to give you a follow?
Oh my God, you can find me on TikTok, on Twitter, and on Instagram, although I use Instagram the most. At Fernando Carsa, Carsa spelled Carsa. It's like casa with an R in the middle, with an R, with an R.
Una R. Uh,
That's fine.
and folks, you know the drill. You can follow us on Instagram at Actors with Issues. Give me a follow at Juaniela Official and subscribe to our show on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast with new episodes every Monday and bonus episodes throughout the week. And of course, don't miss season 2 of Acapulco streaming on Apple TV Plus with new episodes every Friday. I'm Juaniela. This is Actors with Issues, and we'll see you next week.